Shima Zion, who's now Joaquin Wilde in the WWE. But he trained with me, and when we started working together, he was supposed to be a model. He was supposed to be a male model. So I was his manager, his photographer, and business manager.
Welcome back to Fishing Without Bait, a lifetime without definitive expectations. We're going to continue our conversation with Chris Maverick. You mentioned the professional wrestling. I would be doing my audience a great disservice if I didn't discuss a little bit more about that. We've had some professional wrestlers on the show, and of course, the producer of this program, Mike Sorg, is a great aficionado and a streamer, videographer of professional wrestling. So you went into good, hey, it'd be a great idea to get some immersion into this experience, to learn how to write a paper. What kept you with it for the next 7 years?
It was, I enjoy it. I mean, I did it regularly from 2003 till I think 2010, and then sporadically for the next 3 years after that. And then I've gone back a couple of times just for special events, just because I have friends of mine, since then in the last, 5 years or 5-10 years. It was mostly when I started. I think I was 28, 29, and I had been a wrestling fan since I was a kid, since I was 10, 11. I don't know, a kid, a little kid. But I enjoyed it. I'd taken martial arts classes before. I enjoyed working out, and I realized I'm almost 30, and if I get any older, I will be in my mind, I was going to be too old to start. So this was my chance to learn it, and it was my chance to do something with it. And my goal when I started, I remember thinking, if I can wrestle one match ever, that's worth it. If I could just do it once, that's fine. It will teach me everything that I need to get out of this experience, and anything beyond that is bonus time. So, it was mostly bonus time for me. It was very, very fun. I enjoyed the people I met, and it is it is a the athleticism, the technique, the mixture of athleticism and entertainment and storytelling and just culture that goes into pro wrestling is impossible to explain to anybody who has not done it. You can sort of understand it if you're a wrestling fan. You've seen it enough, but the experience is so wholly unique and such a interesting thing that it is kind of addictive. And so it was just fun to keep with it until I basically got a combination of too busy, with grad school and stuff, and too old. I mean, like I said, I was 28 when I started, so I was in my mid 30s when I stopped doing it full time, almost 40, and it was just sort of I was never going to be in the WWE. That was never in the cards for me. I'm not good enough, but I also wasn't driven enough for it. I wanted to enjoy myself, and I wanted to enjoy the experience. And it was relaxing. I mean, like my day job was, when I first started, my day job was, I was a software designer. I was going and designing websites or designing software and writing code all day. And then when I gave that up to become a student, I was, reading academic theory all day. So this was a chance to just sort of, a couple times a week, you get in the ring and you wrestle around and you hit people. It was exhilarating, and it was strangely freeing. It was, it's just like any, I mean, your podcast is Mindfulness. It's just like any other kind of activity. People who I don't know, bowling or something, it's just it's a release from the stress of everyday life. Only it comes with, picking people up and throwing them on their head.
So we have people out there, obviously, that are thinking right now, gee, I think maybe I'd like to become a professional wrestler. What's the process, Mav?
The process is you find a school. Some schools are better than other schools, but you find a school that is reputable and you pay them money to train you, and it is a long, slow process that is training. The first, I don't know, 2 weeks of training are literally learning to fall on your back and not get hurt. And as silly as that sounds, it's a lot harder than it sounds like, just falling over. And you spend 2 weeks learning to fall over and not hurt yourself when you fall over, because after that you spend 2 weeks of people picking you up and dropping you. And you know, it, if you cannot, we call it taking a bump. If you cannot take a bump and not get hurt on your own, then you're going to get hurt immediately when someone picks you up. And then it just gets progressively more and more complicated, where you start learning holds, you start learning throws, you start doing all that. Plus, at the same time, you're doing conditioning, you're trying to get in shape. And you're learning to build a character. You're learning. I mean, wrestling is athletic, but also a lot of it is improv storytelling. So you have to know how to build the narrative of a match. You have to learn how to develop your character to make people care about you. And it's a school. It's just like any other school. People don't think of it that way, but that's really what it is. It's what I have a lot of friends who've done like improv and stand up, and it's that, but also learn how to get hit with a chair.
Could you talk to us about the development of your character, Mav?
The development of my character. Er, Ooh, that's weird because I had a couple. It depends on where I was. I played myself in wrestling, which was like, because my last name was Maverick, and it was like sort of I had a cool sounding name. So I was Chris Maverick there, just like I am in real life. But there was a lot of turning it up to 11. So when I started working with Shima, he's Shima Zion, who's now Joaquin Wild in the WWE. But he trained with me, and when we started working together, he was supposed to be a model. He was supposed to be a male model. So I was his manager, his photographer, and business manager. So that was sort of not true, but that was the start of that character. And there, my job was, I was just a jerky rich guy. But it was fun being the bad guy, and it was just, everything was about having a massive ego problem. And then at the same time, I was also working at this other place where I was essentially, I was also Chris Maverick, but I was an entirely different character. Where there, I was sort of a gang member, a street thug, for lack of a better name. But that was, it was just acting. It was, can you be the character that that the crowd loves to hate? In my case, because I was the bad guy almost my entire career. I very much enjoyed being a bad guy. Bad guy was a lot more fun than being a good guy. You get to like do mean things to people. I mean, it's really, like I said, a lot of it was just like me escaping from regular everyday life. So being able to get up there and just make people boo you and then laugh at them when they do was cathartic and fun. And it just like, I mean, I would say really awful, atrocious things to people. Just to get a rise out of them. And some of it is just like, I remember I worked one show where people booed me, and there's this one guy booing me and saying that I sucked over and over again, and telling me that he was going to kick my ass. And it was just things that you're supposed to say to the bad guy. And I was on mic, and I just turned around and I said, hey, you fat boy, why don't you bring your ass in this ring, and I will super kick you so hard I will knock the rolls off the back of your neck. And everybody in the entire I think I don't remember where we were, Butler. I mean, I don't remember. I don't even know if Sork worked for us yet back then. But I said that, and everyone in the crowd just goes, ooh. And it's just like me embarrassing some random guy. I don't even think he was that fat. Like, I just decided that in the moment. and it was a thing that I would never say to a person in real life because I'm not actually a bad person. I like being nice to people, and in real life I really want everybody to love me. But on wrestling, I wanted people to hate me, and I was just like, what is the worst thing that I can say to this person right now? And that was it, and it worked. And having that feeling to where you can just like revel in the fact that I was just being an absolutely deplorable villain was fun. I loved it.
So, what type of double takes did you get when here's this person, this studious person and intellectual, intelligent, doing coding, right, doing these websites, and that somebody would say, "Oh, Mav, what do you do for fun?" And he said, "Well, I'm a despicable professional wrestler in the evenings."
I had a guy I worked with, like I was a contractor a lot. I would do a lot of my jobs were I don't know like we're just contract for hire. So I'd work at a place for 6 months or a year, depending on what they how long they needed somebody. So I was working at one place, and I came in one day, and like a lot of my coworkers, people who worked there, they were like huddled around. It's like, we found out a secret about you. And I was like, what did I do? And then they were like watching a YouTube clip of me in the ring. It's like, you do this, and it's just like, it's not a secret. You're watching me on YouTube. I'm using my real name. It wasn't. And they're like, so you're not embarrassed? Like, no, I'm not. I mean, I'm not hiding it. Like, you can go to I have a website where it says, software designer and professional wrestler. You can. It's not like it's weird, but it's not hiding it. So there were things like that where people were like, oh wow, you also do this thing. It was more, people in real life tend to be impressed by it more than anything else. If they're turned off or annoyed by it, they don't usually say anything. They usually want to ask questions. It's people in wrestling who are more surprised when they learn you have like not wrestlers. I mean, like, fans. Wrestlers, obviously everybody in wrestling knows that they're playing characters. But when wrestling fans meet me outside of wrestling, and they're like, "Oh, you're actually nice," and it's like, "Yeah, that was a show." um, I ran into a guy, a wrestling fan at Giant Eagle. Giant Eagle's a grocery store in Pittsburgh. As I ran into a wrestling fan at Giant Eagle once, and he was just like, "Oh my God, you're Chris Maverick." And it's like, "Yeah." And he's like, I'm a big IWC fan." I'm like, "Oh, okay, nice to meet you." And he's like, "Oh, so what are you doing?" And they're like, I'm just shopping." And the guy was like, "Where's Shima?" Shima was my tag team partner at the time. I was like with my wife, and I'm just like, dude, I'm just trying to buy eggs. I don't know where he is. We're not together. Like, we have, and it had never occurred to this person that outside of the hour and a half that you see me during an event, an hour and a half, 3 hours, whatever it is, that show, that I have a life that goes on for the rest of the month where I do things like go grocery shopping, and also, sometimes I go grocery shopping, and I have a regular job, which I get because, like, the character was rich. I'm not rich, so I have to I have to go to work, and I have to go grocery shopping for myself. So, I guess there's that, but like, people forget that we were real. So maybe that's a sign of that. I never really think about it. Maybe it means I was just successful at it, that I was good at portraying the illusion that I wasn't, a real person.
People want to believe these things, Mav.
Yeah, that's true.
They want to. They want to create this persona because it's outside of their ordinary life.
Yeah, yeah. It was. I mean, from from a professional aspect, that is the joy of narrative. It's what I'm always teaching my students. Like, why do we enjoy stories? Because they help us process things that are much more complicated in real life. Like, one of the most successful pro wrestlers ever is Stone Cold Steve Austin. And
Yes.
why? And why is Steve Austin so popular? Steve Austin is so popular because everyone in America hates their boss. I mean, even if you like your boss, you hate your boss like a little. And Stone Cold Steve Austin is allowed to beat the crap out of his boss. That, that's the character. Like, if at any point you are having a bad day, and before Stone, now Austin's gone, but like this continues with modern wrestlers. Cody Rhodes does this today, right? If at any point you are having a bad day at work, you know that you can go, if you can just make it to Monday night and turn on Raw, you can see somebody beat up Vince McMahon. Like that was the joy of Stone Cold or Mick Foley or The Rock. They all feuded with McMahon, who was the evil boss, because that's it. You're just like waiting for this time where someone can beat the crap out of the boss, and then you can think to yourself, that could be me. I wish I could stun my boss. So that's the joy of a story, right? In modern America, we've got issues with everything from like political stuff with Trump to climate change or anything else. People look for stories in order to sort of get away from things. So wrestling was about being a living, breathing story.
Escapist type of literature, escapist type of fantasy literature. This is, I think, one of the reasons why some of the films and some of these things are so popular. I deal with a lot of patients, Mav, that have these Walter Mitty-ish type of fantasies
Mm-hmm.
about their life, how they wish their life could be, rather than choosing how their life can be. There's a big difference between wishing and choosing.
Yeah, and I don't think we can always choose. I mean, there are there are some things that we don't have power over, right? Like you do what you can to have as good a life as you can, but it's not like you can just will yourself into being a billionaire, right? Like it's not like you can just will yourself into having superpowers, but you can turn on, you can turn on a movie and you can watch Spider-Man have superpowers, and that's something. It's 2 hours out of your life where you get to enjoy the world of being Spider-Man in a way that you don't, you know, that maybe you're just struggling in real life with something, with very real problems.
Yes.
People like, maybe you're ill, if you've got a health problem, and you can just forget about cancer for 2 hours and watch a Marvel movie. That is a real joy that is important, I think.
Well, I deal with a lot of people who spend most of their time thinking about what they're not, rather than
Mhm.
focusing on what they are and their gifts, talents, and abilities, and add to and reinforce those, and realistically.
Mhm.
And so that's what therapists do. We point out blind spots to people. We encourage I encourage constructive daydreaming. Absolutely.
Constructive daydream. I like that. That's a good phrase. I like that. Constructive daydream.
There is constructive daydreaming. Absolutely. I encourage it. I encourage people to talk to themselves. I encourage them to talk out loud. Be sure to join us next week as we continue our conversation with our engrossing guest, Chris Maverick. And as a free gift, we offer a free prescription: fruits, nuts, and vegetables. Unplug your television and take up fishing. And for a truly mindful experience, we suggest that you fish without bait. Do a kindness for yourself and do a kindness for another. Forgive yourself and forgive another. Till all are free, none are free. Namaste, my friends.
Please check out our website at fishingwithoutbait.com, where you can listen to the show, comment on our discussions, and find out where you can subscribe to our podcast. If you're interested in flying the colors of Fishing Without Bait, click the shop icon on our website. We have clothing, mugs, cell phone cases, and so much more. Show the world that you fish without bait. This show is a member of the Sorgatron Media Podcast Network. Find out more at sorgatronmedia.com.